So eventually, while I was at work, my sister would come in sometime to let the lady in. A shift in the dementia and Alzheimer's started happening, and I don't know if you ever heard of screaming dementia.
Well, during the sundowning time, right? Is that?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was she did sundowning, but this was a entirely different ball game, Nick. She would literally scream for like a half an hour. She did it for about 2 weeks, to be honest with you.
Was it any time of day, in specific time of day, or
Any type of day, any type of night.
anytime? Okay, so it was
Yes.
random.
And when I asked her, "Could you stop?" And she said, "I can't control it." And I never in my lifetime have ever heard of such a thing. So when I asked the MJHS nurse, "Why is this happening?" I'm barely getting sleep. I'm still going to work. I have like 3 or 4 hours, because at nighttime, no one came in to cover. I just had her alone.
Yeah.
So that was really a big struggle for me, but the nurse was telling us that she's doing that because she doesn't wanna go to sleep because she knows she's gonna die. That's what the
What was it
nurse
like?
told me. I never
What was?
heard that in my lifetime.
Yeah. What was it like hearing that though, for you? How
It
did you
was very
respond?
scary. I mean,
Yeah, I imagine so.
I have a strong faith today. I'm grateful I do, where I do a lot of prayer and meditation. And there were times when that was happening, those 2 weeks, that I was literally crying crocodile tears, saying, "God, please, when is this gonna end?" Because it was unimaginable suffering, and I knew all I could do was wait until it's over. Um, there was times I had my headphones on, to try to get some sleep, but I always had to hear one ear out just in case she fell,
Yes. Yes.
so I wasn't really getting proper rest. Um, During the 3rd week in September, um, it stopped, and I remember her sleeping a lot, and she wasn't eating at all, and then quietly September the 20th, her spirit transitioned and she passed away.
So it was a 2-week, 3-week period
It
before.
was. It
Okay,
was.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry for that
Thank you. That's okay.
turning
I'm
around.
grateful, that she's no longer suffering.
Yeah, yeah. So first, I want to tell you, as I'm listening, I want to acknowledge how I'm sure it's emotionally charging, and it will bring up a lot of emotion. And I want to be here for you during that time. And if at any time we need to stop, we can certainly stop. I'm saying this primarily because I can also understand where you're coming from. It was only 2 years ago my mother passed away,
Mm,
dementia, Alzheimer's, and was with an aide for about 2 years, and then
right.
had to go into an assisted. We did an assisted for about 6 years. And it was a slow progression. So I say this mostly so there's a very difficult time for all family members to acknowledge when in the early stages, something
Mhm.
is happening.
Mm.
What was it like for you? Because you were there every day, and then you were holding everything together. So that takes a lot of effort and a lot of love and care.
It did,
What was that
and,
like for you?
um, it took a lot of patience.
Yeah.
A lot of patience, love, and tolerance, and, my faith. I'm grateful my faith kept me together because that was my first time witnessing something like that up close and personal, and to not understand what where you're going down that path, you always feel like you're a little alone with that person that you're caregiving. You always feel like, only you are going through this. And I have to realize there's so many other people.
Have you ever faced a moment that changed everything? A loss, a new path, or an awakening that forced you to rewrite your life? Pivot Point is a podcast that explores those stories. I'm Nik Michael. We'll dive into how pain can spark growth and how crisis leads to clarity. Subscribe to Pivot Point today.
Welcome to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. I'm Nik Michael. There are moments in life that arrive without warning and without permission. They don't come dressed in ambition or excitement. They come quietly, sometimes painfully, and they ask something of you that you were not sure you had left to give. And when those moments land, the question is never whether you will face them. The question is, who will you become in the middle of them? Today's conversation is not about a career transition or a bold entrepreneurial leap. It's about something more intimate than that. It's about the kind of pivot that happens inside a person when life asks them to show up for someone they love in ways that test every part of who they are. It's about what happens when the person who raised you, protected you, and shaped you begins to need you in return, and what it costs and what it reveals to answer that call. Caregiving carries a particular kind of weight. It's not dramatic in the way people talk about dramatic change. It unfolds slowly, and the losses that come with it accumulate forever before we even realize how much has always or already shifted. The grief is not always tied to death. Sometimes it comes earlier in smaller moments when you reach for someone and they are not quite there the way they used to be. My guest today, Yvonne, knows that experience from the inside. She stepped into the role of primary caregiver for her mother through the progression of Alzheimer's and dementia. And what she discovered along the way was not just how to survive something hard, she discovered what it means to surrender without giving up, to ask for help without losing yourself, to hold fear in one hand and faith in the other, and keep moving anyway. This conversation is about the internal pivot, the kind that does not show up on a resume or get celebrated at a dinner table, but quietly transforms the way you understand strength, control, presence, and purpose. Yvonne, thank you very much for joining us here on Pivot Point Strategy for Change. I'm really excited to speak with you today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I want to just begin really where you'd like to begin. I'm sure there are many pivot points throughout your life that you might have experienced. And what I often tell people is we can certainly talk about many different ones at another time, but if there's a pivot point that occurred in your life that you'd like to share, what would you like to tell us about?
Oh, definitely when I became a caregiver. But way prior before that, I would have to say, give a little background. I'm the youngest of three, older sister and brother. And I was the last one to leave the nest. So my relationship with my mother, who was a widow since 1978, we were very, very close. We was always very close. So it was a time when she had her first stroke, and she bounced back pretty well after that, and then 2 years later she had another stroke, and that one she didn't bounce back too quickly. The left side wasn't strong. So I decided to have her move in with me so I could take a look at her. Mentally she was fine though. She could recite stories and tell you her whole history of her life and who she met. So I didn't see the Alzheimer's or dementia at all,
Mm,
at least not yet. So as time went on, I slowly saw that the transition of the thinking. She started repeating herself over and over and over again. And she would get upset, you know, if I question it.
mm,
So, many times we took her to the doctor, a neurologist did say, she's going through the beginning of the stages.
mm,
So, her primary care gave her some medication to take and things. It's like calcium buildup of the mind also in the brain. And because of her age too, at that time she was like still in a little bit of in her early 80s, but it got progressively worse. So by the time I would say like 89 or 90, it got really strong and aggressive. And one thing she always told me though, Nick, she said, whatever you do, please do not put me in a nursing home.
yeah.
She did not want to go there. And, there was a time in her life when she was younger, she was an assistant caretaker. That's what she did for a living.
Mm,
So, going to people's homes, taking care of them, helping them if they, had some disabilities. So, she would hear stories of, the nursing home, how bad they treat you. So that stuck in her mind that, I don't want to go there. I'm not going to be taken care of. So, I always told her, "You don't have to. Stay here with me. I'll take care of you." I have an older sister and brother, although my brother's way out Long Island, my sister's not too far. She can, we can tag team and help each other out. So, and I'm grateful my sister stayed close because by the time it got really, really bad, when I wanted to go out and socialize with my friends, my sister had to come over. The time it started turning worse was last year. I would say late spring. It got really, really bad. Her doctor was telling us, we would always say, "How's her eating? How's her eating? If she's eating
Yeah.
good, everything's okay." But, she really wasn't. Sometimes she would eat good, sometimes she wasn't. But, she got very, very quiet, very much to herself. And, I would ask her questions. Sometimes she would answer, sometimes she didn't. So by the summer, it got really, really bad. She was going in and out of the hospital a lot at this time. A lot of times she would fall out of the bed and I couldn't pick her up, at all.
How did you manage to get her up? Did you had to
I
have
would
help?
call, yes, I would call the, oops,
EMS?
sorry. There's a
Yeah.
thunderstorm. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, no, I heard we have it here too.
Yes. So I would always have to call, the, 911 and they
911,
would,
right, EMS,
yeah,
EMT.
yes. And so she went back and forth to the hospital, and there was really nothing else they could do. Um, so she would come back home, and finally they suggest, she's going to need some help, and they suggested MJHS and some other ones, but I chose MJHS to help me out because I saw the decline. This now she's stopping eating and everything, and by the time, I would say late August, she started falling more, never breaking anything, thank God. But yeah, I would have to call a lift and assist. They have this lift and assist, and they would always come and pick her up and everything like that. And I didn't have a medical bed at the time in my home. I had a lot of buffer pillows to protect her. But somehow she would always slip out, but it would never hurt herself. So eventually, when I had the MJHS would come during the day while I was at work, and my sister would come in sometimes to let the lady in. A shift in the dementia and Alzheimer's started happening, and I don't know if you ever heard of screaming dementia.
Well, the sun during the sundowning time, right? Is
Yeah,
that yeah.
she did sundowning, but this was a entirely different ball game, Nick. She would literally scream for like a half an hour, every
W
half an
was
hour.
there a specific time or was it just random?
It was, she did it for about 2 weeks, to be honest with you.
Was it any time of day in specific time of day or
Any type of day, any type of night.
anytime? Okay, so it was
Yes.
random.
And when I asked her, "Could you stop?" And she said, "I can't control it." And I never in my lifetime have ever heard of such a thing. So when I asked the MJHS nurse, "Why is this happening?" I'm barely getting sleep. I'm still going to work. I have like 3 or 4 hours, because at nighttime no one came in to cover. I just had her alone.
Yeah.
So that was really a big struggle for me, but the nurse was telling us that she's doing that because she doesn't wanna go to sleep because she knows she's gonna die. That's what the
What was it
nurse
like?
told me. I never
What wa
heard that in my lifetime.
Yeah, what was it like hearing that though for you? How
It
did you
was very
respond?
scary. I
Yeah,
mean,
I imagine so.
I have a strong faith today. I'm grateful I do, where I do a lot of prayer and meditation. And there were times when that was happening, those 2 weeks, that I was literally crying crocodile tears, saying, "God, please, when is this gonna end?" Because it was unimaginable suffering, and I knew all I could do was wait until it's over. Um, there was times I had my headphones on, to try to get some sleep, but I always had to hear one ear out just in case she fell,
Yes. Yes.
so I wasn't really getting proper rest. Um, During the 3rd week in September, um, it stopped, and I remember her sleeping a lot, and she wasn't eating at all, and then quietly September the 20th, her spirit transitioned and she passed away.
So it was a 2-week, 3-week period
It
before.
was, it
Okay,
was.
so
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry for that
Thank you, that's okay.
turning
I'm
around.
grateful, that she's no longer suffering.
Yeah, yeah, so first I wanna tell you as I'm listening, I want to acknowledge how I'm sure it's emotionally charging and it will bring up a lot of emotion. And I want to be here for you during that time. And if at any time we need to stop, we can certainly stop. I'm saying this primarily because I can also understand where you're coming from. It was only 2 years ago my mother passed away,
Mm,
dementia, Alzheimer's, and was with an aide for about 2 years, and then
right.
had to go into an assisted. We did an assisted for about 6 years, and it was a slow progression. So I say this mostly so I can. There's a very difficult time for all family members to acknowledge when in the early stages something
Mhm.
is happening.
Mm.
What was it like for you? Because you were there every day, and then you were holding everything together. So that takes a lot of effort and a lot of love and care.
It did,
What was that
and,
like for you?
um, it took a lot of patience,
Yeah.
a lot of patience, love, and tolerance, and, my faith. I'm grateful my faith kept me together because that was my first time witnessing something like that up close and personal, and to not understand what where you're going down that path, you always feel like you're a little alone with that person that you're caregiving. You always feel like, only you are going through this. And I have to realize there's so many other people. I had a friend whose dad had the same condition, but he went into um um I think it was Lyndon St. Albans. He was a military guy, so he went to there. But I'm grateful I had a little bit of an outlet to talk to people about that. If I did not have that outlet, I don't know how I would have handled it.
Well, that's good that you recognize that, and that's important to connect
Yes,
because I know also from, and I was primarily the only one really actively involved. I have an older sister, so many family members have a difficult time giving up control
yes,
and or wanting to step in when someone else is there. But on some level, there might be a level of relief that you were there
yeah.
and that you're doing it, and because you're living it every day.
Mhm.
So that takes a lot of energy and compassion and care and
It
time
did.
and adjustment to your life. So I just want to acknowledge that for you, that's a very quiet time, alone feeling.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that going through this at a time when there's there's a slow progression,
Yes.
which yeah, that and then there's almost how long will this go on? Because
Mhm.
the progression is not going to go up. It's always going to go this way.
Yes, and it's so funny because I had a supervisor years ago that I used to work with, and she would often tell me she experienced it with her grandmother, and she said, "It doesn't get better, Yvonne. It just
No,
keeps getting worse."
progressively worse.
Yes,
Yeah. Sometimes,
progressively worse.
well, sometimes there might be
Yeah,
that that dip, but yes,
exactly. And as much as I want to um have somebody's experience be like my
yeah,
grandmother, she went to sleep, she passed away in her sleep.
yeah,
You didn't see no suffering at all, at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
It was pleasant, I guess for her, she didn't have to deal or stress any of the family members out.
You're listening to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. If today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It truly helps others find the show and supports the work we're doing here. You can find Pivot Point Strategy for Change on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like a deeper dive into the work we explore on the show, I invite you to visit my Substack page where I share in-depth articles and reflections.
Yeah. Now you're what we would say is someone who's a strong person. For you to be willing to take on, there's always a lot of love and care, and you're now giving back. Most of the time, and I'm going to say generally speaking, caretakers oftentimes don't want the support from outside.
Yes.
What was that like for you then to at some point need outside support?
My God. I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner when I first
Okay, see that I
started.
need you to say
Yes.
clearer, not for others who are listening, because
Yes.
I know others that I have worked with. I know a few nurses that I work with that they're
Mhm.
going through this and they contact me a lot. We just talk.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own experience with their own parent and how they got through it with the medicines, with the
Right.
decline,
Right.
with the cognitive decline, then the physical decline. And let's say the falling out. My mother had fallen out a couple of times. We had to bring
Mm.
her to get, she had broken something. It was unusual. It was very unusual how it happened. And so this was a hard thing.
Mhm.
What kept you holding on to doing it all yourself?
I think one of always remembering my mother's desire to not be put away somewhere.
I thought you would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, and once I made that promise to her years before she even got to the Alzheimer's stage, I guess she was just dwelling because a lot of her friends passed away, and she didn't want to end up alone in a place where she didn't know anybody. And I felt something about that. I was like, I'm in a one-bedroom apartment. I can make it work if I had to. And it did work. It did work, and I was grateful I could be there for her. I mean, there's times she was there for me. So this was my way of, I guess, a living amends in a way, always helping me. And now it's my turn to do for
Yes.
her.
And how has that worked overall, knowing that, how does it feel inside for you knowing you were able to?
It gives, even to this day, a sense of a peace of mind, a peace within myself. Um, um, it showed me I had courage to do something I never thought I could do, you know, and I wasn't walking alone. Like I'm a believer of God, and I'm a firm believer that God was with me this whole time, because
Yes.
I was talking to him so many times, even I didn't hear a response. And I was always often heard growing up as a kid, my grandmother used to say, sometimes you have to wait. And waiting is a powerful, powerful thing. Whatever
Yes.
you're waiting for, it's always powerful. And I never understood
No.
what
Yeah.
she meant.
We never understand the words. Yeah. Until we do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to this time going through this pivotal change with as a caregiver for my mom when she was alive, I had to practice a lot of waiting and, trusting,
Right.
and
What did
I didn't know what's gonna
what
happen.
did you say to yourself? Because that's the difficult part that most people overthink.
God, I told myself that, the old saying, "This too shall pass," when
Right.
something was rough.
But that's more important for you to go back to what you feel
Yes,
strongly about and your faith, which I have to compliment you on that. That's
thank
wonderful.
you. I had to remind myself that, everything is, like, temporarily in life, you know? It's not forever. It may seem like it's ever.
Yes.
It's so funny that, growing up as a kid, I was like, "Oh my god. It's taken so long to get to this age.
To
Now
grow
that
up.
I'm at
Yes.
a woman of a particular age, things are flying by. But sometime when you're in the moment of, a little distress or nervousness or anxiousness, it feels like it's a long time because you don't know what's gonna happen next. I think that's when my faith kicks in, right about that moment, because I have to trust whatever process I'm going through, and, it just takes a lot of practice to do it. But so when they're going through this, don't give up. Rely on the strength of your higher power if you have one. Talk to family and friends to see if you can get some help. Don't walk it alone. I'm
Now,
so grateful. I had a sister.
I'm glad you're saying that. Now, you have family to communicate with and to confide in. It
Yeah,
sounds
I
like that
do.
really helped you a lot.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
My
because
sisters always was there. My brother, I sort of had to kick and drag.
right. No, that's fine. That's typical, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But he would finally do it, if I told him, "Look, I need some help." There's times you really got to say, "I need help," or you
right.
got to step away to have a little
Well,
time for yourself.
right.
And I have friends that did that
So
for me.
that's important that you had that because I imagine this is what's important for many. When the caregiver is asking for help,
Yeah,
they must really need it because you're not going to raise your hand and say, "Hey," it's not going to be a panic request. It's, I need some. And how was it for you then? How was it for you? And it might be a sensitive question, adjusting your life and the things that you were doing on a daily basis for the number of years that this was going on. I'm just curious. How was that?
for
I'm not. I don't want to pry, but I want to hear
no,
from you
no,
if
not at
you want to
all.
say
Well, I was living on
because
my own
there's
for
an
a
adjustment.
good 25 years before my mother moved in to stay with me for 16 years. So now I'm getting acclimating myself to, okay, living alone again. I had to do a lot of clearing out of a lot of things that were here. I donated of hers. A lot of quietness, a lot of peaceful moments. It's so funny. I was looking out the window yesterday and I saw like a red bird. I haven't seen a red bird in years. And I took a picture of it and I shared it with my colleague at work. And she said, was this just like a red cardinal or something like that? She said, when you see those, that means someone's looking over you. Someone from heaven is looking over you. And I was like, that has got to be my mother.
Yes,
And
it
I
is.
never saw the bird again, but I took a picture of it so I could always remember of it.
Yeah, I love stories like that. I was going to say I have the counseling that I do, and I work with young kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
And not too long ago, one of their teachers passed away,
Mm,
and the little girl had her in kindergarten. I think she's in fourth or fifth now, fourth.
right.
And there's a there's an event that's coming up that reminds the kids of the teacher,
Oh,
and she's no longer in that school because well, the teacher, she had moved up to the next school, but she thinks so fondly of her. And I had spoken to the mom,
yeah.
and she says, yeah, she thinks of her a lot. And her older sister had her as well. She wanted to tell me, she knocked on the door and said today, she said, I was thinking of her and I have a feeling, I guess that's a good warm feeling. And you
Mm-hmm.
can come and find me. And that means we're thinking of them and we care about them and they care about us. And that means
Yeah.
they're thinking about us.
Yes.
And she took a deep breath and I walked her back and it was just the right moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
I know exactly what she meant. And I said, I feel like that too. There was an
Yeah.
event coming up that reminded everyone of this particular teacher who recently passed away. So
Mm,
it's a very dramatic moment, but I look at those moments as opportunities for us to think about, remember, and own and keep with us. An honor. I really look at it as an honor.
yes,
To honor.
indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So for you, it must have been very hard then to you had hospice care in the house
Mm-hmm.
at the home? Yeah.
Yes.
How was it getting to that point for you?
There was had to get comfortable with it. Definitely had to get comfortable with it.
Right, because you're doing things on your own.
Yes.
I don't
Because
need any help.
right, right,
I
right.
got this. But now it's different though.
It was so different and
So
you know
there's a
the
point where you made a decision. I'm curious about that.
well that decision happened because my mother kept going back and forth to the hospital,
Right.
And this is when she was falling a lot, not injuring herself, not breaking any bones, but when you take her to the emergency room, they have they see how many times she comes in.
Yeah.
And they were saying there's really nothing we could do for her. She's she's still suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. So, it's best for you to get hospice care, they was telling me, because they did so many tests and you know, I wasn't going to have her operated on at 94 years old for, let's say, polyp or anything like that. That didn't make any sense. So I said, no way. So they would send home. But before they sent her home, there was one nurse that said, she's really ready for in-home hospice care. And I would suggest you
How
do
was
that.
it hearing that? I used to work in hospitals too. I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
It was a little scary, but a relief because I had a whole bunch of choices. And I just decided on going for MJHS at the time because they had good reviews. I always look at my reviews and on the websites. So I was grateful that I made the choice. They were good. They were very thorough. Came on time, no complaints. My mom even liked them when she was aware. So I was starting to get very comfortable with that. And I was grateful that, Nick, that my job that I currently still have, they did allow some days for me to work from home so I can be with the nurse. So I was grateful for that.
What fears came up for you when hospice entered the picture for you? Because everyone has, I want to give you a moment to think, because everyone has an impression about no, or I'm afraid now. And sometimes it's also, I've got to put it clearly,
Hmm.
because there's no when an older person, a senior, is reaching a stage of their life,
Yes.
you don't know how long, and you might be getting closer now to that point where it will happen.
Mhm.
I've got to say that sometimes there's almost like a relief of some sort, and some people feel guilty about having that. Maybe this is the time,
Mhm.
and I can have some relief. What was that? What was going on for you? And I'm not speaking for you. I want to
No,
just hear.
exactly. I totally understand. When they first started coming, um, it was a bit of relief because, they were knowledgeable about some things I did not know how to do, you know, um, the changing of the beds and stuff like that. I knew a little bit of it, but I wasn't really good. They were professional at that, and cleaning and bathing. Um, and certain foods also. So it was, as much as I had to sit back and allow someone else professional take over,
Yeah,
it was a learning experience too. I had to always say, Yvonne, this is a teachable moment. I look at life now at teachable moments. So I
I
have
like
to,
the way you put that. That's a
yeah,
very yeah. You're reframing it, is what I'm saying, and
yeah,
that's the hardest part to
it,
allow for someone to allow themselves to reframe an event in a way where they can
yeah,
absorb it and
uh-huh,
embrace it. That's a tough spot for some people.
it
So
is, it
I'm
is.
glad you put it that way. Yeah.
Yes. And I was grateful my sister came over the days I had to go to work. Um, so the nurse and my mom were never alone. There was always a family member here, so I didn't have to worry about anything, you know. You know what I forgot to mention prior to that? Even before hospice even came in, there was a time when my mom actually walked out the apartment and I found her in front of the
Wow.
apartment building. I forgot about that. Yes. And I coming home from work and I see her with her bathrobe sitting on the steps. That's a time when I knew, okay, I need help. That was
Yeah.
another moment too.
Did you change anything about after that? Did you change your approach to
Well,
caring
yeah.
for her? I'm just yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Someone always had to be with her. I had to watch the
Okay.
locks.
Right.
Well, she stopped cooking a long time ago, but I got the childproof, noms on my, stove just in case she tried to cook when I wasn't
Yes. Yeah.
here.
Yeah. We had that too.
Yeah, so, little protection things. Yeah, that was another sign that told me, "I'm gonna need some help, major help right away." So and then it seemed like everything fell into place, you know? When I really needed the help, I got it. Her she declined more, and, at the process, it's almost like I was surrendering also to her spirit slowly transitioning.
Yes.
Now
Yeah.
I was letting
Now,
go as well.
how did you how did that happen in the early stages? Because it's hard to recognize that.
It is hard to
And
recognize.
if you look back, I'm going to ask you what you know now. If you look back, this is a very difficult piece for many family members to know because you're there constantly. So if
Yes.
you look back, when did you start to recognize early stages of when the condition was impacting your mother? Like what
Um,
I have my own I was going to share, but I want to
yeah.
hear yours.
Well, there was a time when she would tell me she doesn't feel good. She says
Right.
something's not right. Definitely, she would think I'm stealing out of a pocketbook, which I
Huh? Yeah.
wasn't.
The
So,
mistrust.
yes,
Yes. Any
her
any
trust.
paranoia, anything?
Oh my God,
Yeah.
always paranoia. And I was always have to comfort her and tell her, no, that's not really happening.
Right.
And then a doctor told me once, so that I should go along with it, because no matter what I say, she's not going to believe it. So comfort her and
Good
go
point.
along and say, you do hear that noise. You do see somebody standing there that you really don't see. So I try both ways, both methods, and sometimes it comforted her, sometimes it didn't. So it was very strange and
Yeah.
odd
Was there any irritability or rapid mood
all
change
the
of
time.
regular and all of a sudden over exaggerate?
Yes, all the time, exaggerated. She was upset, angry. A lot of her friends passed on, so she had no one else to call anymore. All the friends that I saw growing up that were her friends. Every single one of them passed on.
That's the most difficult part of it, really, because
Exactly, and I used to
yeah,
put myself in her shoes and said, "Yvonne, imagine if all your friends have crossed over. You're still here. You have no one else to talk to." And I don't have no kids, so
yeah.
I would be super lonely. I have nieces, and that's about it. But, yeah.
You're listening to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. If today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It truly helps others find the show and supports the work we're doing here. So I know this experience deepened your faith. How would you describe your relationship to faith now compared to who you were before this whole pivot began?
Definitely a lot more stronger, you know, definitely. I have a strong faith of well, to me, death has never been final. Never been final, you know. I had a best friend who passed away when I was in my 30s, and I started reading all these books, and there was this one book that always comforted me, um, after she passed away, Many Lives, Many Masters. I don't know if you heard about it,
Yes, of course. Yes, yes.
yeah. So that comforted me even when she passed, and she passed away at a very young age. So I always thought that in mind when other people pass away. It's like a door, it's nothing final, But my mother often told me she was so afraid to die. She really was. So she didn't have that outlook
Yes.
on end of days for her. She thought everything was final, and I would share with her, "I don't think it's final. I think there's more, you know? There's more. This is part of our lives we're living now in this experience, and when we cross over, we're gonna have another experience."
So you were really aware of how different your mindset was
Mhm.
in relation to
Yes,
death
it was.
compared to your mother, and you respected what she wanted and what she believed.
Yes.
But this is very common for many when you're saying that she was insistent about not being outside of the home, right? So she was how was that for you knowing that you did manage all of
I'm
this?
grateful,
Yeah, I was gonna say you must
I
have a
am
lot of
so
yeah.
grateful, she came from a big family, a family of 12. And married early, so she was never on her own the way I've been on my own. She never experienced it, and even as a young one leaving out of the nest, she got upset when I left because she was finally on her own. And though she lived her life, but it's funny how years down the line, she gets sick and she comes back and she moves back in with me, so we are together again, So, it's almost like full circle
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
for her.
Yeah, for you and for her.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's like the complete. So I know
Mhm.
there's a powerful statement you made that there's really nothing to fear. So how did you arrive at that understanding after walking through something so emotionally demanding, difficult?
My faith, definitely my faith, There's so many things I'm powerless over, in life, and I finally realize that now. I practice more acceptance. I do a lot of prayer, and prayer is incredibly powerful. That has been a tool that has helped me for sure. But yeah, it definitely increased my faith and let me know that, I have more courage inside of me to do things and help others than I ever thought possible.
It sounds like you've gotten stronger,
I've gotten
essentially.
so much
Right, right.
stronger.
So
Only downside, I'm gonna have to admit this, since my mother's passed away, um, because I'm a woman of a particular age and my joints are now aching a little bit more. I didn't feel them at all, Nick, when I was helping her. But now, the arthritis is getting
yeah,
stronger. I'm like, okay.
that is yeah. Oh,
So
I hear
there
you.
is that little downside. And
Yeah,
I
of
don't know if
course.
that's a caregiving thing, but yeah.
Well, you stayed tough both emotionally, physically, mentally to be there for her at a sacrifice. So you did sacrifice
Yeah, I
a
did.
significant
Surely
amount.
did.
What did you discover about yourself during this journey that you might never have found without it?
I have more patience than I thought I ever had, Definitely with her. It's funny how you can have patience for some things and patience not for other things. But when it comes to a caregiving, helping somebody else, definitely have more patience now because so caring about them. I don't have time to think about my own worries, so my focus on them. I guess that's more unselfishly giving of myself, helping them instead of worrying about the woes that's in my life. I don't have time to think of both things at one time. And I'm grateful to see that I could practice that faithfully and not give up, not give up at all. I
For
always like,
someone,
no, I'm
yeah,
sorry. I always like doing service, even, I don't have no children, but I remember one time in my 30s, I decided I want to give back. I want to give back. And I decided to become like a big brother, big sister
right, right.
to a little 12-year-old. And I did that for like 6 years. And it was really, really good. It felt so good, and I remember the gentleman of the organization, he said, "Yvonne, it's so good that we do this, but always remember, we're not supposed to see the outcome of what we do. We're just supposed to practice what we do in the moment."
Nicely.
And it was so nicely put because,
Yeah.
she was such a shy little girl when I met her, saying 1 or 2 words, and then by the time she was 16, she couldn't stop talking. And then that was the end of the program. That was the end of my mentoring for her. So I look at that with caregiving. I was present just for the moment to help my mother to the best of my ability. And, I can't do everything perfect, but I could try my best.
No, yeah, right. It's just giving yourself, which is the most important gift.
Yes,
So for someone listening right now who is quietly carrying the weight of caregiving and feels like they're running out of road or just what would you want them to hear or to know?
God, they are definitely not alone. Ooh, and there's so much outlets out there that I wasn't even really aware of for caregivers where you can call in and talk to other people that are going through the same thing. There was a website I found. Oh, I wish I could remember it now. Is it caregivers.org?
Okay.
People were sharing their experiences, what was happening. Some people were giving feedback on suggestions. It was the best thing ever. And I remember going on there quite often just to look at, are you experiencing this? Because I'm experiencing this. And you find out that you're not alone. And
Yeah.
what you're dealing with,
Yeah.
so many other people are dealing with the same exact thing.
And that's the hardest part for many when they don't feel like there are others out there going through what they're going through and
Exactly.
when they do really connect, there's a relief and there's an openness and there's a connection that comes out from it,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
so good. So when you think about your mother today, what part of her spirit continues to stay closest to you?
Her Southern personality. She grew up in the South in Virginia, and though she was in New York for many years, she
Right.
still had that Southern hospitality, the
Yeah.
warmth, to make people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's innately in part of me.
Yes.
And she was a giver too. She took care of some of her grandkids. So yeah, I'm grateful
So
that
I
I'm
I
grateful
have
that
I have a strong belief that when we connect with someone, if it's a parent or anyone in the family, we tend to continue on on
yes.
the work that they're doing. What it doesn't mean like the profession, but the work that they're doing in caring for others. And you are certainly continuing the path that you have been taught and raised and are giving uh, from what you learned from your mom and from being with her and being raised by her. And I always like saying, when people are loved, they will love others.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing that is not always not for many people. It's sometimes very unique. So
Huh?
because when you had true love and you understand what that involves, you can certainly give that back. And so I can see how important that was for you to go forward with all of this.
Absolutely. She was such a loving my mom was very loving, very much loving, you know? So, yes, that's absolutely true.
And that caring comes through in how you live your life too, and how you're yeah. Is there anything else before we close up that you'd like to mention that you think is important for anyone who has had to maneuver and navigate the more often than not, the slow progression of a loved one battling, a condition that is very difficult to be around or to even notice in the early stages, and then living with it.
Mhm.
What comes to mind? What do you think someone would benefit knowing from what you've been through?
I would say, to definitely be strong, like, what you're going through is maybe challenging, but it's not going to be forever. It is definitely temporarily, and no matter how long it looks, definitely get connected with some networks, get a network around you so you could talk to someone, an outlet. That was very important to me because when you can't talk to the person you're caring for, you need to talk to someone who's not battling that same sense of thinking.
Yeah.
So, and there's so much out there, so much information that I wasn't even aware of until, I was doing searching and some soul searching. And my older sister and brother, they weren't even aware about it. And I had to sort of school them, like, this is out there
Yeah,
for
that's
you.
that's the piece there that other family members, because you're seeing it on a daily basis,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
there's a level of wanting to stay in denial. I'll
Yeah.
tell you this
Mhm.
much on their part,
Of course.
because if they were to start, if they were to begin to really internally recognize and understand what you're going through, it would be a difficult. So many times, extended family usually tries to stay away to a degree,
Yes.
and they do that because they want to let you handle it, or but then you don't want to be alone in handling
Right.
all this,
Right.
but you have to be, and you're going to be there, and they know that you're going to be that strong presence, that
Mhm.
rock, and
Exactly.
you want that too, but it becomes a very difficult path
It does.
overall, and especially when it's for an uncertain amount of time. The issue really is you don't know how long you'd be doing that. So
Mhm.
it just from the bottom of my heart, I just want to compliment the effort, the passion, and what you've been able to give back. I know it was an important for you to be there for your mother during this time.
Thank you.
And from someone also, I mean, this is a very demanding part because you've made a lot of sacrifices.
Mhm.
But I do want to acknowledge.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you. My condolences to you and your family.
Thank you, and that's appreciate that too.
Yeah.
Now, your mother was 94, you said, right?
94, just shy of
Yeah.
turning 95.
Yeah, my mother was 94 also, which was
Wow,
interesting. Yes,
really?
that was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we were blessed to have them that long.
Yes, for that long.
You
Yes, of
were.
course.
You're
Yeah.
very blessed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I appreciate it. So I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank you once again for sharing your story
You're welcome.
here on Pivot Point Strategy for Change. It is a powerful story, one of resilience and one of really the grit and the caring and the love that is involved in giving back to someone who raised you and loved you, and you're continuing to do the work that she has raised you to do, and that must be a wonderful gift now also to be there for others and
It is.
be around. So I want to thank you for that, and in the event that other things come up down the road, perhaps we can talk again and
Absolutely.
continue the conversation, which I really wholeheartedly appreciate your being able to share it, and I know listeners will also benefit greatly from this. So Yvonne, thank you very much for
Thank you.
joining us here on Pivot Point Strategy for Change.
Thank you for having this platform, Nick. This is
Thank you,
wonderful.
yes. And
It
I
really
look
is.
forward to keeping in touch with you too.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.